Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sasha Chan and I'm part of the marketing team here at CityBase. CityBase is a government technology company that transforms the way cities connect and do business with constituents. CityBase works with local governments, agencies, and utilities to integrate payment functionality, business processes, and communications onto a central cloud-based platform that consumers can access through the web, mobile, kiosk, or point of sale. Today we are presenting a guide to modernize the government payment experience, CityBase Q1 product update and announcements, presented by Jason Mader, Director of Product Management at CityBase, and Matt Zwicky, Senior Product Manager at CityBase. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box by clicking on the Ask a Question button on the left-hand corner of your screen. We have a dedicated Q&A section at the end. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Jason Mader.
Okay, thanks, Sasha. Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking some time out of your day today to learn more about CityBase and our products. Matt and I are going to summarize, or begin by summarizing 5 problems that we see with the existing government payment experience. We're then going to show you how some of our solutions address these problems. And at the end, we'll leave some questions, leave some time to answer some questions from everyone on the line. So let's jump right in. So as a resident, we know that interacting with your government or local utilities can feel at times difficult or costly or time consuming. But as people who work with governments every day at CityBase here, we know that you are all working constantly to improve not only the service of the experience, but the people's lives and the days that you interact with them. So we believe that a few improvements to this process can make it more easy, affordable, and efficient for your constituents to interact with you. So the first problem that we see, the most common interactions are still sometimes the most difficult interactions. If you think about the 3 most common interactions that you have with your constituents, or even as constituents yourself, the interactions that you have with your government, what are they? What are the things you do most often? It might be something like starting a utility service, paying for a ticket, signing your kids up for summer camp, or applying for a refund or some type of permit or application. Now, if you think about that experience for the constituent and how easy is it for them to complete that task? In each of those tasks I just mentioned, how much of the information that they have to enter for that task is the same every time? How much of it do you already have in some system somewhere that maybe they've given to you in the past? Most of those tasks that we just talked about require the name of the individual, their address, their phone number, maybe an email address. And if they have to pay for that service, probably one of a handful of payment options or payment methods that they keep in their wallet. But still, we force them through that exact same process every time. And some of those things they do every month to pay a bill or apply for something that they need to renew. So it might seem obvious, that stat on the page there, the 68% of people say they only want to enter or they only want to provide some information once. But their expectation is that if they've given it to us once, we're going to remember it and we can reuse it in the future and make future interactions easier. So to them, they don't really care that the back office systems might be different or that they don't integrate. What they see is that they're interacting with one government or one utility provider, and they should be able to have a great experience and have a consistent experience across all departments or agencies. So the next problem is the cost of those delinquent payments. So it's no surprise that bills get delinquent or payments are missed. And they're costly to collect when they get to that state. The debt collection industry was just $10 billion a couple of years ago, and it's up to $15 billion now. 10 cents of every dollar that goes into collections is revenue that's not recognized or not collected by the government or the agency. And there's all kinds of reasons why people might be delinquent on their bills, but we're not going to go into that topic today. What we want to focus on is preventing that situation altogether or helping someone get out of that situation once they are in it. So what we do that by providing payment options that work better for them, and I'll show you that later on. But in turn, that solution then gets both the constituent out of that debt or prevents that, but also allows the government utility to collect those payments on time and in full.
So at CityBase, we're not just advocates for a better customer and resident experience. We love talking to cities and utilities to understand what back office tools their teams are using to manage revenue in and out of their organization. And for many of the folks we talk to, we've learned that they're using old and disconnected systems to track payments. For example, I recently spoke to a manager in the finance department of a large city where her team is responsible for the management of city revenue across many different city departments. Her staff was spending more than half a day logging into multiple systems in order to reconcile their web and kiosk payments that were paid for using card and e-check and cash. That multitude of different platforms slowed down their research and reporting that was required on a daily basis. And when I asked more about that technology her team was using, she described how it had been built, custom built many years ago. It still works, but it wasn't designed with her team in mind. And in fact, her team had some ideas that could streamline their processes, but the development costs made those usability upgrades difficult to justify. And so as a result, her team had a longer than average turnaround time for those different support requests from the constituents. And this was coming up as a pretty frequent piece of feedback heard from their frustrated customers. So with those problems in mind, why don't we switch over and get into some demos and show you some of the solutions that we've come up with at CityBase.
So we're going to start our story today on the profile page of my CityBase profile. So I've logged in here as Mr. Ron Swanson, and on my profile page, that is the place that I would go to see all of my interactions with my city or utility. I might be able to see the debts that are outstanding. I might be able to see tickets that I have to pay or the status of an application or a permit that I've submitted. It's kind of my one-stop shop for all of my interactions. And so you can see here I've got some information about a balance that is currently owed, as well as the history of some payments that I've made. I can also go into my account and add information on my profile here about my first name and last name, my address, phone number, and email, some of the things I mentioned before. And this is how we make some of those common interactions a whole lot easier. Imagine the next time you go to apply for that construction permit, you don't have to enter your home address because we already have it on your profile. Or when you register your kids for summer camp, you only have to provide information about your children and the dates that they plan to attend because everything else we need for registration is already on your profile. So let's say I logged in today because I knew I had an outstanding bill that I needed to pay. And so I'm going to go back here and on my profile page, I'm going to say I want to pay the full balance. So you can see here on this page is the beginning of our checkout experience. And this is what we tried to model after the retail experience. It's a 4-step simple process. You can see the 4 steps across the top there. First, we ask them to pick their payment amount. Then we ask them to choose their payment method, confirm their customer information, confirm the entire transaction at the end, and review it before we submit the transaction. So we'll walk through each one of those steps right now. But we really tried to make this as simple and straightforward as we could so that it was an easy and enjoyable experience for the users. So let's talk about how we make it easier for someone to either avoid a delinquent payment or get out of that debt. And we do that by offering flexible payment options. So you can see the first option here at the top is a full amount payment. And that will always be an option. And in some cases, depending on the debt type, may be the only option that you want to offer to your constituents. But they could certainly pay the full amount of the debt and work through the process. A partial payment would be just as it sounds, just a part of the payment. And imagine in that scenario, I wanted to pay half of this debt now and the other half next week when I get paid. And what we've seen in the past is that it's more likely, the likelihood of a debt to be repaid increases when you allow users the flexibility to align payments to their pay schedule and when they get paid. So partial payments is a great way to help them make those payments on their own schedule while meeting the obligations of the debt. And the last option there at the bottom is our FlexPay recurring payment option. This is great for something like a property tax that might be a one-time or twice-a-year payment, but a large payment. And we can offer them the ability to break that into smaller, more manageable payments. So you can imagine a monthly or a biweekly payment here to try and make it easier for someone to pay their property tax. without having to save and have the stress of meeting that obligation once or twice in that year. We also have the option on the full payment amount or the full amount to make it an auto pay. So I'm going to go ahead and click next and go to the next step. But the auto pay would be just pay the full balance in every month because it's a recurring monthly bill, and go ahead and pay it with a payment option that I have or payment method I have on my profile. So on the payment method tab here, I have two options. I can go ahead and click on ACH checking and show enter in the routing number and the account number for a checking or a savings account to do a direct fund transfer. Or I can enter in a credit card number here and put in my CVV, check the box to make it my stored payment method, and then click next to go into the customer information section. So my name and my email address are pre-populated for my profile. If I needed to add something new, I could. But in this case, if I quickly verify that this is the information I want to associate to this transaction, I can breeze right through this step and go on to the final confirmation. I still have an option again to auto pay this bill using that payment method in the future. I can accept the terms and conditions, and I can make my payment. Last step is just a summary, a confirmation that the transaction was successful. And of course, a receipt has already been emailed to me, so I have that for my records in my inbox. But at this point, I've paid my obligation. It was a simple and easy process. I'm pretty happy about it. I was able to do it quickly and move on with my day. And now Matt is going to show us how the revenue management dashboard can help solve the last two problems that we talked about.
And so we understand that the back office responsibilities of taking payments is not easy. When you're taking payments online, like through this great user experience that Jason just showed us, but also taking in-person payments, plus offering your customers different payment options like credit card, e-check, and even cash through kiosks. Oftentimes there are more than one platform that the back office needs to use to keep track of all of those different payment channels. If this sounds familiar, you know that also issuing refunds, tracking down chargebacks, and balancing daily deposits can take an army of resources. We think better technology can transform how those issues are solved every day. And so that's why at CityBase we're launching a new product that we're calling the Revenue Management Dashboard. This product is designed for those who work in finance and customer service and at the city or utility. They're the folks who are responsible for research, for reporting, and for reconciliation of payments, probably on a daily basis. So I want to take you on a quick tour of this new product where I'll show you things like real-time reporting, an intuitive payment search option, an example of how to issue a refund, and then user permissions that will allow you to make sure that you're able to control which users seen the payments that they're just supposed to see. So we're going to jump over to, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Here we go. And what we're landing on here is a dashboard where we see a variety of widgets that can track and trend and report payment volume in real time. And that's really important, that this is a real-time update. Every time a payment comes in, this dashboard will reflect that. Let's take a little quick tour down the page. I do want to mention that this is a demo environment that I'm showing you, so these are not real payments. And probably this represents a fraction of the activity you would see at a large city, collecting payments from multiple agencies. This dashboard will report payments that are collected through kiosk, point of sale, and in the web, all in one spot. So that's kind of an interesting differentiator. This dashboard is entirely configurable. So some of the reports we see down here can summarize data while others get into really specific line item detail. We have a basic set of reports, but we can also easily customize those reports to suit different needs. And I wanted to scroll down and show a couple of interesting things. Chargebacks and returns are a pain for everyone, but they are part of taking payments. So here we can see an ACH return and chargeback report that will alert users to new chargebacks and returns that have come in because the payment has been reserved reversed by the customer. And that usually requires some additional research to determine what debtor obligation needs to be marked as unpaid. All of these reports are searchable and downloadable. So I can search, I can download these results. That's really nice for taking this information into a different tool for further analysis or even to share those results with other stakeholders. Also, finally, the dashboard itself can be filtered to a different time range. And I could maybe say, show me everything for 60 days on a monthly basis and see those results update in real time. Now, let's take a look at how your staff would search for payments. So when we were designing this user interface, we realized that a researcher doesn't always get perfect information when they're trying to research a payment from a customer. So with this in mind, we designed an experience that provides multiple search options on a framework that also allows us to iterate and increase those options in the future. So let's take an example. Let's say, for example, a customer has paid the wrong amount and is requesting a refund so that they can pay the correct amount. The analyst working in finance receives the support ticket that tells her the customer's name and a date and an amount of the payment. Also in this case, that case came in with a receipt number or a transaction ID. So we have multiple search options. You see that I would be able to search by that transaction ID, an amount, or something about the payment instrument. In this example, let's say that the transaction ID is 700-28504, and that we know that the payment came in sometime last month. So I've got these nice quick date pickers. I can run a search, and here's the payment. Real quick, I can see the transaction ID. I know that it was a payment taken for inspection fees for $260. But I can also click into this payment and get a little bit more information. To confirm, this is the customer I was talking to for the $262 payment, where there was a part of that was a $2.50 service fee. So if you recall, the ask was to issue a refund so that the correct amount could be paid. So I would simply click the refund button, provide my username and password again, because we want to re-authenticate to make sure that the person who's issuing the refund is the person who has the rights to do that. I complete the refund. I have a success message. And what we're looking at here is the refund itself. So the $262 has been returned, but I also have a link to the original transaction, which is pretty powerful. I'm going to click on that and see now that on the original transaction, it's marked as already being refunded, and the refund button is gone, so it can't be refunded again. So we want to make sure that people don't make a mistake by issuing a double refund, and have that link to understand the connection between an original and a refunded transaction. Okay, let's do another short example. Let's say a customer has a question about a payment, and the customer was only able to provide the last 4 digits of his card and a date. So I would go in, clear my search, start over, and the case told me that the card ended in 1443, and maybe I know the cardholder's last name, so I'll provide that. And that the payment came in on the 2nd of February. So I'm going to pick February 2nd and search. Okay, I found 2 payments from this customer. They paid for an inspection fee and a permit. So I could jump in, look at the transaction, and confirm for this customer who had a question that we did receive payment on the 2nd of April at nearly 9 o'clock in the morning for $457, and that was paid on this card. So it's really easy for the analyst to jump in, find the payment, take an action if needed, but get in and find the information that they need in a short amount of time. So when you have a team that's researching and reporting and reconciling payments all day, the last thing you want for them is to be waiting for the technology to keep up with them. So when we think about performance, that's one of the things that we kept in mind when we were building this tool from the ground up on the latest technology. So to demonstrate some performance, I know this is a demo environment, but I can pretty quickly do a search of all payments that we've collected this year. Now run that search, and it's thinking here for just a second, and pretty quickly I have nearly 6,000 payment results. I can browse through these 25 at a time, and at the bottom I could jump to a different page. Just to show you how quickly you can jump around and browse through these results. So keeping in mind that this product is pulling together all of your payments from different channels in different payment methods, we've also designed some filter options that help you focus your search. So doing a search for the entire year, maybe I'm trying to understand all of the payments that we've taken for permits that were collected via kiosks. So I'll select kiosk, and where the customer used check as their payment method. So you see how quickly I'm able to build that search, run it. Oh my goodness, it's not what I was expecting. My demo environment might be having a problem, but I could really easily, change the search to remove some criteria and run it again with these different filter options. So that's demonstrating how the power of collecting payments from different channels into one spot. Okay, so now that you've seen how easily your staff can search for and act on payments, let's talk about how important it is to make sure that each of those staff members has the proper access. Again, when designing this product, we were thinking about cities that collect payments across a variety of departments or agencies. And our experience of talking with customers tells us that some users will need to manage payments while others should, or some users need to be able to manage payments across all departments, while other users should only be able to see payments within their specific department. And we've also learned from talking with customers that some users, they need to be able to restrict who has the ability to do voids and refunds and also set up other users. So let's take a quick look at how an admin would solve those questions when setting up a new user. Here on the user settings page, we have a really nice clean design showing all of the users who are currently set up. When a team member leaves the organization, an admin can pretty quickly deactivate the user to prevent future logins. I can also reactivate them. But more importantly, when a new member joins the team, I'm going to scroll down and select the new user button. The admin can fill out this form pretty quickly to set the new user up with access to the things they need to be able to do. Now, two things to focus on this page. One is that roles determine who can void and refund and who can administer users. So we can think of a researcher as having kind of a read-only experience. Supervisor has the ability to do voids and refunds, and an agency admin can add and manage other users. And the second thing the admin needs to decide is which departments this new user should have access to. And that assignment means that the user can see payments that were taken for this agency. In this case, the new user would only be able to see payments taken for animal care and control. Then the admin finalizes this by sending an email to the new user where that new user can set their own password, which helps preserve the privacy and the security of password access to this application. All right, that's the end of our tour today. Let's take a recap of what we just covered. First, we looked at real-time reporting here on the dashboard page, showing both aggregate and detailed reports. We looked at some powerful payment search options to find quickly and act on payments. We walked through a common refund workflow, and then we talked about user permissions to make sure that each user is able to access just the payments they're supposed to see. This is all in one platform that solves all these problems on all payments collected across different channels and payment methods. I wanted to recap a few additional points before we move on to Q&A. There are some things that we want you to keep in mind when you're thinking of ways to modernize your government or your utility, that payment experience for your customers. First is to look for a provider who's giving you solutions using modern, secure, and flexible technology. Also, look for technology that will enable you to streamline the common interactions for your customers. You should realize your customers have high expectations when they're already paying online, and that you can increase customer satisfaction by offering a polished experience. Also, not all customers have the same ability to pay, so enabling them to choose flexible payment options that make it more likely that you'll receive a payment on time helps everyone. And you can realize these efficiencies by consolidating all of your payment channels into one modern platform like CityBase Pay. But regardless of the solution you use, the most important thing for you is to continue to explore and ask questions and improve. So we're excited and available to be part of that process with you. All right, I'm going to turn back to Sasha to see if we've had any questions come in during the webinar.
Great, thanks Matt and Jason. As a reminder, if you've not already done so, please type your questions into the box by clicking on the Ask a Question button on the left-hand corner of your screen. We will try to get through as many questions as we can, but if we don't, we will be sure to address them after the webinar. So a few questions that have come in. I'll turn it over to Jason first. Regarding the user login, if they forgot their password after creating a profile on the website, how can they recover it?
So the user will have the ability to reset their password if they forgot it. This is another place where we try to create a similar experience to retail. We don't want to have the government or utility company take on the burden of questions that come in about resetting passwords. So we wanted to make this as self-service as possible. The forgot password, the registration process, everything can be done by the users themselves. And we wanted to make it as easy as possible for them to complete their own task.
All right. Matt, this is regarding revenue management.
Sure.
How do I give a team member the ability to issue voids and refunds?
Right. One of the things I showed was that when an admin is setting up a new user, they're deciding the role of the new user, and by giving a user the supervisor role, that will enable the user to issue voids and refunds on any payment that's been collected by their department.
Great. Also related to revenue management, how do I give a team member the ability to view payment data but nothing else?
And that would similarly require the assignment of the researcher role. So we know that there's going to be a lot of users of this platform that just want to be able to look and see payment activity, but shouldn't necessarily have the ability to change or react to the payment with a void or a refund. And so that's why the researcher role, I think, is going to be used pretty commonly to give access to people who need to see payments.
Awesome. Jason, I believe this is a good one for the user login. Are we sure that storing payment methods is secure?
Yeah, so that's a common concern. And we have a security team here at CityBase that ensures we use state-of-the-art tokenization methods, and that essentially means that we don't ever store the raw account number information. Once the user puts it in their profile, we send it through a tokenization service that allows us to kind of encrypt or obfuscate the number so that we never have that raw number on our system or on our server, so that we can't be compromised. Like, we certainly don't want to be in that situation, and we don't want to compromise our users either. So our security team makes sure that we're covered on that. But if anyone ever had very specific questions or wanted to dig into that deeper, we'd be happy to talk about it more.
Okay. Matt, you showed how quickly you can see payments. How long will it take for a payment to appear that was just recently made?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've heard that from some users who are using some outdated technology where sometimes they have to wait 30 minutes or more for a payment to show up, or sometimes it's not even until next day. This platform is real time. So the moment a payment is finalized on the web or at a kiosk or in person, it shows up and is searchable in the revenue management tool.
Great. Going through these questions. Jason, how will my residents be able to sign up for and create a user profile?
So what we have today and some of our other customers is like a new account registration option on their website, and that's really up to the customer. We work with our customers to figure out where the best place for users to find that is, but essentially, again, it's a self-service profile, so the registration process can be initiated by the user themselves. Again, going off of the goal of making this like a retail account experience. They type in some information about themselves, they verify their account, and then they can get into the city services and start associating or locating debts or filling out applications, and it's all tied to the profile from there.
Great. I think we can wrap this up. So I just want to thank you all for spending your time with us. We hope you are excited about our recent product releases along with updates we have made to improve and modernize the way residents access your services. Please watch your email for the on-demand recording of this video to share with colleagues, and please visit thecitybase.com for details about our upcoming webinar. Thank you.